encounter we had at my house that one time. But
Definitely time to stop recording.
Oh no, like this is basically a brand new video. This is like a debate video. Like our discussion's over about the book is over, so this is a debate.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was a pretty intense day. And we weren't even talking about the debate. I think we were just talking about issues in general. But luckily, I was lucky enough to just like kind of get my dad, and we were just talking about it. So it didn't turn into like a whole issue. But I just kind of like, I feel like my point of view is getting skewed a lot. Like people are starting to take me out of context, and it's starting to get like, I don't know. It's just like if people keep taking me out of context, I can't do anything like constructive, because it's at that point they don't want to listen to what I'm saying, because what they're hearing isn't what I'm saying. Like they're hearing something completely different.
Yeah, the responses are always, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a Trump supporter. It's just like, no, it's not.
Yeah. So, but I was definitely watching the debate from like, a Yurugu type of standpoint. And I saw a lot of, what we always see. First of all, nothing was constructive about that. Nothing was solved. Nothing was actually even talked about. I think that it was definitely a huge distraction. It was just white people talking about white things. And as far as what they were discussing, I just felt like this is kind of where my frustration keeps coming, because I can't help but like kind of pick a side. It's just, if as Black people, if we continue to keep ignoring what is going on, we're not going to get anywhere. The media is going out and creating these narratives and these things, and people are subscribing to them and listening to them and not really get it. They're not doing anything else. I'm having a hard time finding my words without sounding like a Trump supporter. So.
Well,
yeah, I want. Oh, you can go ahead, Swan.
Well, I think it should be hard to sound like a Trump supporter. I'm only gonna comment on the dog whistle. No, not the dog whistle. I'm only gonna comment on the white supremacist behavior from Donald Trump. Him telling his white supremacist gangs to stand by. I think that's all that needs to be said about the current system we live in. And Joe Biden isn't gonna like make the Proud Boys disappear, nor that mentality disappear.
Yeah.
Therefore, the focus should be Indian white supremacy, not this goddamn stupid ass unconstructive election. It's for white people. This is a white thing. It's not gonna help us, serve us, but it will surely serve us to our detriment, as most white things do. But for the Black people who are invested, and for the non-white people who are invested in this nonsense, your energy would be used better fighting white supremacy, joining this book club, or any other book club like this, the movements like this. But that's all I'm going to say about the election.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about it for sure. Not going to take too long though. I mean, for one thing, it's like, it's just because a lot of the people that we're dealing with, our family, watch a lot of news all day. Mm-hmm. And the news frames everything like it's almost like you're watching a basketball game and not something that has to do with real people's lives. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely just about a win-lose type dynamic that's super toxic and doesn't really benefit anyone. And I thought it was, when I was watching it and I just heard the way that the guy framed the questions, and I was like, wow, this is Yurugu. Because it would always be like, oh, the earth is, burning, climate change is happening, but, I think it might cost too much. And it's like, well, okay, so what is the cost if there won't be any people on this planet? Like, and everything was framed in terms of like money. And it's so interesting how people's lives are not even worth money. Yeah, like are worth so much less than money. And how it was constantly framed as money matters more than everything. And so when you set up the questions in that way, the audience is already in their mind thinking, well, yeah, how can we afford this? Instead of the idea of like, isn't this a huge existential threat that if we don't fix, we all will like, you know, not be on this planet anymore, or my grandchildren will not be on this planet anymore. And it's just like, wow, that's what was really shocking to me. It's that it's set up so that you don't care about human lives, right? That's the whole point of the mass media. Like, so when I watched it, I was just like, yeah, I'm not surprised, especially after reading your review. It made a lot of sense.
That was kind of what I mentioned earlier when I was discussing with my dad, because obviously they talked about climate change, and I was just telling him, because we talked about it a few times, like how, you know, I don't know if you guys are aware. You guys know in California, by 2035 they say that they're not selling any more gas cars, right? I don't know if you guys heard about that. Like by 2035, California will not be selling gas cars. All of them have to be electric emissions and whatnot. And I was talking to my dad, like, he obviously is like, oh yeah, that's a great thing, you know, but I'm like, those cars, you know, especially like Tesla, very toxic for the environment, very inefficient, and cost a lot to make. You know, you're destroying the environment to create these things. But he's just like, yeah, well, I mean, you know, but it's the air quality, like it's good, it's a good thing for, but I'm like, but Dad, the issue hasn't been solved about, because we're ending one issue and creating another, you know. So that you have to get out of that mindset. You can't constantly be doing things in that way. And also going back on how the guy was asking the questions, when he asked Donald Trump that loaded white supremacist question, because in my opinion it was a loaded question. Like, I know that Donald Trump is a white supremacist. You know, no white supremacist is gonna come out and just be like, yeah, I'm not fucking with white supremacy. And that's a good question to ask somebody, because I would want to know. You know, I just want them to catch them. But I'm like, you need to ask Joe Biden that question, because if you don't ask him that question, people are going to assume he's not, like, he's against it. You know, that's very misleading to people, because like you said, the way the guy frames the question is, people are already thinking in one direction. So I thought that was kind of very frustrating for me. But obviously, like, we would expect something like that to happen because of what Yurugu talks about.
Yeah, and I think the idea of white supremacy is like, just people are thinking of it only as the Proud Boys. And I think you make a good point that they should have asked Joe Biden that, because Joe Biden is a white supremacist and he has a history of being a white supremacist. So it's not a valid question to ask him, but it's like people don't want to go there. And on like what you were saying about the electric cars, is like, yeah, you know, why do you think like lithium? I think because people are not really informed about where everything they have comes from.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you're now going to be getting lithium batteries, or I don't know how these things work, but I know that, like, you know, there's a coup happening in Bolivia right now because Bolivia has a lot of lithium. Like the Afghanistan war, there's like more people in Afghanistan, I think, than at the beginning of the war or something like that, because there's like lithium in Afghanistan too. Like, so if you're thinking that people are just going to war for oil, well, now they're just going to go to war for whatever makes electric cars. Like, it's not going to change. Like, you know, people around the world are still going to be suffering because of these things. Like, and I think
this kind of goes back again to how Europeans, like, that's not their thing. You know, they don't ever have a constructive solution. Like, they don't ever solve the issue, you know. And people are like, especially non-white people, aren't really seeing that.
And I remember having that conversation with your parents, and one part that really got to me was when I was talking about how, like, these presidents don't do anything for Black people, and they're like, they don't have to. It's not just about Black people. And I was like, wait, what? Like at least be strategic and look out for yourself. Like,
for real.
Every other race is doing it. Like when a Republican, is because it benefits them. Like, so at least be smart. Like, at least look out for yourself.
It's like
you can't tell Democrats that you can always rely on us, and then also tell them that we have these demands, because they're gonna be like, well, we can always rely on you. Why do we have to listen to your demands? Like,
yeah,
you're not playing your hands right.
Yeah, I think that's also another issue crippling Black America is just, they have that statistic where it's like 95% of Black people vote Democrat. So like it really, like when something like that exists, it just goes to show you like we don't really care, or we have zero interest in what's going on. I feel like under the system of white supremacy, like I think Black people still need to be involved in politics, especially if we're talking about how we can defend ourselves in white supremacy. So I think Black people definitely need to get more involved in politics. I feel like if Black people did get more involved in politics, like in a constructive manner, we would definitely see an upturn in what's happening in the conditions we find ourselves in.
Yeah, I think there's a constructive way to be, and while you're muted, so I don't know if you noticed. I think there's a constructive way to be political, and there's a non-constructive way of being political. And I think personally caring about the presidential election is a not constructive way personally, because like there's so much more shit happening just like on your street, in your neighborhood, on your block, that is way more significant. And you could probably, on the low, like set up an area where everything is like, like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like you can definitely infiltrate spaces if you were really strategic about it, and like, yeah, but I don't think that we are right now, and we need to be.
Yeah, I never
distraction.
I never share like the people of like the poor working class, people like South Central, those non-white, especially Black folks, are way too maladjusted, way too like, conditioned by white supremacy already to like participate in so-called politics. And like most of my family members are what I will even like consider to be dead people like like incapable of like joining the fight against white supremacy, because their mind has been so mental-sided, and they just like are such in a like vicious cycle of like reacting to racism that they can't even like begin the process of heal. So I think the like upper middle class Black people, that those are the Blacks participating in politics and whatnot. I can assure you a lot of like these poor working class Blacks. I don't see them participating as much unless they see like a Black president that they can vote for. But as for understanding like the ramifications and like understanding how to utilize their vote in a constructive way, that is not a skill the collective has. And as for like acquiring that skill, I don't know. If that's a worthy goal versus focusing on white supremacy, any white supremacy.
Yeah.
Well, I think you can do both. I think you can like focus on white supremacy while like giving people small victories, and also like doing things like that is also a good tool to get people who are not going to be interested in a reading group to like learn more about white supremacy. Like, I don't know, doing tenant organizing that I do, like having people understand that it's not right that someone owns your home and can kick you out whenever you want because you're renting, or can't like abide by certain like, can have your house be filthy. Like that's not your, like we shouldn't live in a world like that. And I think a lot of people, like I work with a lot of people who are older, English isn't their first language, etc., and who are really scared in a state of like constant fear, and have been really awakened by the fact that, oh, I don't have to exist in this way. Like, I didn't know that. I don't have to always be afraid that my landlord is going to call immigration on me or something like that. So I think I think there's multiple ways to go at it.
Yeah.
Personally.
I think the thing that kind of like gets on my nerves the most about like presidential election is just kind of the amount of non-white people I see being kind of just conditioned and kind of being manipulated, you know? I think that's just kind of the most frustrating thing. Like, I can actively see it happening in front of me, and like they're not seeing what I'm seeing, you know? And I feel like every time that happens, I just start getting frustrated, and then I start talking about the presidents in politics. But I think that's the goal, is to like frustrate me.
Do you ever
It's like,
watch the cows?
what
You
is
know how
that?
Swap puts like these videos up? It's like a radio station. Oh no, it's a black talk radio station. It's called Countering White Supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
And like they'll have a lot of white supremacists on there, or just people who are kind of stuck. And I really I think I take a lot from them, because it's really important to just like not get emotional when you have those conversations, and to always be really like level-headed and just ask questions. You don't even have to refute someone's claims. I think like after a while, things unravel with people on their own. And I really like watching the way that they interview people, because I want to take a lot from that, and that it's really important to not get emotional, because nobody's going to care once you get emotional. Like,
true.
It's just like they don't care after that.
Yeah, just try to ask good questions that you know are going to get to the root of the problem. And just like questions that are like, they're not going to be able to logically make logical answers to without sounding completely like nonsense. A lot of people are like conditioned to live nonsensical lives and participate in nonsensical behavior, and also regurgitate the same thing. So I think when you throw a little logic on the table from Neely Fuller, or that you can learn from the call videos, that you have a huge upper hand when dealing with a large majority of people.
Okay.
Due to white supremacy, racism, like doing a huge number on the collective intelligence, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the internet has made it 10 times worse, because everyone just wants to sound smart but not actually have like a conversation. Like, it's super toxic. Like,
I know.
Can I read?
I know.
I'm gonna read this fucking response that someone sent me for like when I invited to the book club. I'm gonna read this low frequency head ass response. She says, I do like the concept, but I think the answer isn't about forcing white supremacy to do something about us. We have to do something about us and save ourselves, reallocate our resources, and leverage our power within and outside the community. They aren't going to give up the economic and political power to us because it's right. Yeah, so, and I responded, I softened that divide, but according to my research, it would be impossible to build anything if people are unaware that being genocided through racism and white supremacy. I get what you're saying, but yeah, so it just
there's like a whole book about that, about the myth of like the black buying power. Like, that's not a real thing. Like, black people can't just collectively get all their money together and somehow like end like white supremacy or something if they just stop buying Jordans or something like stereotypical like that. Like, that doesn't work. Like,
I mean, it's definitely like a better start, I guess, but overall, like, just like with the Tulsa thing, you know, like white people just blew that off the map. So literally, like, at any moment they can.
Yeah. And it just goes to show how cynical people are in revisioning a better world. It's like, at best, what we can do is become like black capitalists, like basically become white people and tell them, hey, we're like you now. Can you stop being like horrible to us? And it's like, that's been tried many times.
Yeah, so what else about the election? Oh, I thought it was I thought it was absolutely hilarious when like they were talking about the military, and Trump was like, Joe Biden was going on like some rant, and Trump was like, who are you talking about? And Joe Biden's like, I'm talking about Beau Biden. Trump's like, oh, I don't know anything about Beau Biden, but I know Hunter was thrown out of the military and he does coke. Like, did any of you guys see that?
Yeah, that part was insane.
That I thought that was hilarious. Like, I feel a lot like Trump really was addressing a lot of the shit like Joe Biden has been called out for, which I liked, just because like I want him to like speak on that kind of stuff. Like, I want him to be exposed. I feel like when both of these guys, when there's shit that everybody knows, like they need to address that shit. Like, we can't just ignore that.
Yeah.
I
think it's funny because like Swat just watched this movie Patton, which is like this war film, and it's so interesting because the Democrats are like still living in that world, that Patton world where like America is exceptional, and we have this like when he was like talking about the military, he's like, don't you ever talk about my son or something like that.
Yeah,
and he was totally trying to appeal to all of these bleeding heart people who just like, you know, have this like, oh, don't talk about the military and America is so amazing. And like those people don't exist anymore. They're such a small minority of the world. The world is really cynical and they're aware of how like evil the world is and how evil white supremacy is. And they're basically just like, am I going to try and get a piece of the pie or am I going to like get the scraps, you know? Nobody cares about like appealing to your morality in that way. And it's so funny how the Democrats still try to do that. Like nobody's on that wave anymore. And I think Trump is a perfect explanation of how cynical we are as a country.
Yeah, I've been like trying to show point that out to my parents, you know. Like, I felt like whenever Joe Biden was kind of talking, he was always definitely trying to appeal to people's emotions. And that's something that Democrats, that's like their whole game plan. And personally, I hate that. Like, I would much rather you present me with like the facts and just let me decide for myself. Don't try and make me feel bad. I don't know if that's a white supremacist thing though. But moving on.
I think it's just like a dumbing down of society thing where just turn politics into emotions and what makes you happy or sad or feel comfortable, and turn your whole life into like a fairy tale of the good and bad people. It's like that's what everyone exists in now. It's super weird. Like
yeah. I saw a lot too. They were talking about how much Trump was interrupting Joe Biden. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's like a huge thing. Like, you know. But while I was watching it, I noticed like, you know, they would ask him a question. You know, Trump would answer it. Trump always, for his answer, he would always use his presidency as an example for his answer. So if they're like, "Oh, what are you gonna do about the race issue?" He'd start talking about what he's done in his presidency, right? Or his ratings. That was how he was answering the question. But every time they asked Joe Biden a question, it was kind of like he was just kind of attacking Trump's character, calling him a monster, all kinds of names and stuff, you know, trying to appeal emotionally. And it's like, well, like, if I was Trump, I'm not just gonna let you like talk shit about me like while I'm standing right here, you know. So obviously, like, I'm gonna say something.
Yeah.
But I felt like that's entirely what Joe Biden was doing just the whole time, you know. And obviously, you know, people focus on him interrupting so much, and then it becomes, oh, Trump's like can't shut up. You know, Joe Biden didn't even get a chance to say anything. But it's like, at the same time, I felt like Trump continue to rescue Joe Biden, because Joe Biden would just continue to like attack Trump's character, not really answer the question, and just kind of run himself into a corner because like he doesn't even know what he's talking about anymore. Like, he was just talking about Trump's character the whole time. I'm pretty sure he doesn't even remember what the question was.
Yeah.
And then Trump would just start interrupting him, and then they would just start arguing, you know? And it's like, well, that's why the whole thing was a shit show, because it was a lot of Trump bailing out Biden and Biden not being able to answer anything. So that's how I felt about that. I don't know if there's going to be another one soon. I don't even know if I'll watch another one.
I think there's 3 altogether, so there's gonna be 2 more, and I think one is like a town hall with undecided voters.
Oh, asking questions or something.
I think so. Probably like through like a video or something. I don't think they'll probably be in person.
Yeah.
I was just like, it would be so nice if they just both got COVID and died.
I mean, let's do it. Let's catch COVID and let's make our way over there. That's funny, but yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of reaching a point with politics. Like, it's definitely not constructive at all, especially European politics, reading these books. But at the same time, I'm just like, I don't know if I'm just down with people being like mindlessly manipulated and brainwashed to do the white man's bidding. I'm not saying like pick a side, but it's like, damn, like, you know, you could also like not vote or stuff like that, you know, like I'm trying to help people realize that, or I'd like to.
Yeah, I agree. I think not voting is a very good option, and if you do it strategically, it's a great option.
Yeah.
But I think either people don't do it or they don't do it strategically.
Yeah. Much. Real shit show.
But also, like, I don't think you should be like super invested in all of this.
Yeah, I try not to be. I'm definitely dialing back a lot.
Yeah, I don't know how good it's gonna be for like it's just a game. It's not reality. Yeah, like what you're reading and stuff is like actual reality. Like all of that is just like something that further confuse you.
Yeah, definitely. I got my parents to watch that documentary, The American Lows, where I told you I bought it.
Oh, did they like it?
They were watching it right now, a little bit earlier before I hopped on. I put it on for them.
Oh, okay.
But my mom was like, she's like, I don't want to watch a documentary of Black people defending white supremacists. I'm like, Mom, like, when did I ever say that? Like, that's what it was about? Because she just has this whole idea like I'm a Trump supporter. So she's like, anything I'm showing her, you know, she's like, anything I'm showing her.
What's going on?
Ezra's calling duo.
But yeah, I feel like anytime you say anything critical of Joe Biden, then you're just a Trump supporter without any like. Yeah, there's a lot more nuance to things, but people don't see the nuance.
Yeah. So, but they were watching it. I think I was probably gonna go check on them after this.
I'm interested in their thoughts about the Christianity part too.
Yeah. I mean, you know, my parents have kind of been on that like wave for a little bit now where they don't really fuck with Christianity anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's pretty dope.
Oh yeah, they're like, Christianity's a scam, and it's blinding Africans and preventing them from progressing. That's pretty much their take on it.
Well, yeah, that's super dope. I need to get my parents on that wave.
They were trying to. You weren't here, but that weekend they came out here and only Kendra came. My parents were showing them like shit on WhatsApp, like people like decoding Christianity.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I don't know how your parents really felt about it because I think I left before like I could get their thoughts or hear their thoughts about it.
I feel like with my parents, there's not like a delving deep into Christianity. It's more of just like something that you were born with, and it's almost like the church they go to is very much a status type of church. Have you ever been there?
I'll right back, Ezra.
Have you ever been to the church that they go to in like West? And it's like in I mean, it's literally on like 20th and Crenshaw. Like it's in the hood, and it's like the most like expensive like church with like 10,000 seating, and it's super just like this show of like flamboyant, rich Blackness in this very, very poor area. And it's really, really bad. like
imagine if all that money put in that church went into that community, you know, like that's insane that things like that can be like erected and yet all the people around it are still suffering. Like I don't understand how people ever saw any kind of justification in that, you know, just that whole Christianity thing. And I just remember that reminds me of when I went to Ghana and we visited the castle, and they're talking about how there was like they were having church up top and there were slaves beneath them, you know, like trying to get air and shit. And it's like how could you have ever, like, as an African, how could you thought going to this like institution and then witnessing your like your brothers and sisters, like how, like, I can't imagine the mental hoops you have to go through to make sense of that.
Yeah. There's a lot of like, well, it's like what we were learning in Yorugu. It's like you have to separate certain people, and there's the people who are worthy, and then there's people who are just never, and you have the people who you have to control. It's just like when I used to go to that church as a kid, and I would see all these homeless people, and we'd be walking into this supposed church where you're supposed to do all these good things. Meanwhile, my parents were telling me, don't talk to those people. Oh, sorry. Like, it's just crazy to think like how people can split their mind.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but I think we used to go to the church across the street, right? And then they kind of built that new one. So, yeah. So I used to go there too, and I think last year, because obviously I haven't like been in that area forever, I have no reason to go back there. I went back there, and now it's like a whole bunch of construction, like the roads are being all done and whatnot. But it's like I still see like a lot of trash. I still see a lot of like homeless people, you know. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well, I gotta go. I gotta do groceries.
No problem. Well, before you go, I'm just gonna say that I'm not focusing anymore on the presidential race. I'm gonna focus more. I got a little pamphlet of the props, so I'm gonna read through the props, and I think that'd be a lot more constructive.
Oh, the props for your city?
California, yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, do that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, but I'll let you go. I'll catch you guys on Friday.
Yeah.
See you Friday.
It's for Andrew, man.
All right. Later, guys. Bye, man.